Hello, welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast. I'm Justin Sloan.
And I'm Paul Zeidman, and I'm very happy to introduce our special guest today. She is an author, she's a blogger, she's a school lecturer, of all things. Katryn Bury, there's Bury as in the verb, I assume.
It's Bury, but I get that all the time.
Bury, okay, my apologies.
I'm a mystery author.
Okay, no problem. We are happy to have you on. There's so many things to talk about. I'm looking forward to discussing all of them with you. But as is the usual case, anything we've been reading or watching lately? Justin, do you want to kick things off?
I have to remember, so you go ahead.
Okay. Well, it took a while for it to finally show up on my Netflix goose. I'm one of the handful of people still getting discs in the mail, which I'm going to miss when that goes away in a few weeks. I finally got to watch John Wick 4 or John Wick Chapter 4. You know, it was okay. I liked it. I don't think there was any reason for it to be almost 3 hours long. It was just a lot of excessive fight scenes, which at some point was some parts were good, but sometimes it just felt like, my God, just get on with it. And also, as the more it went on, I hadn't really realized it, despite the other three movies, how much of a indestructible cartoon character John Wick is, because he's just like, he's constantly getting beat up and hit and slashed and occasionally shot. I think of the one thing where he jumped out like a 4-story window and he landed on he crashed into a car roof and just went slamming onto the sidewalk. And he just, in like 3 seconds, he's like, oh, and he stands up and kind of stretches it off and runs off. It's like, okay, this is just getting even more ridiculous than I remember. But I'm glad I watched all 4 over the years. But God, please do not make them have a John Wick 5, because spoiler, he dies at the end.
I'm sure they will. And then the spin-off show is coming out. So
who plays John Wick?
Sure.
Keanu Reeves, come on.
He does? Yeah, okay, I haven't seen any of the John Wick. See, this is where you're gonna judge me a little bit. I never watch action movies except for Jurassic Park. I will say, since Justin is wearing it.
You're only saying that because of his T-shirt. That's okay. That's okay. It kind of came out of nowhere. The first one a couple of years ago, and it just exploded in popularity, and people love it. And I think because the guy who wrote it and directed was a stuntman, so he had all of these insights into that sort of thing. So it's like that one was popular, then they just rushed the next one into production as soon as possible, and then they cranked out a third one, and just the fourth one came out I think earlier this year, almost 3 hours long. Did not need to be that long, I can say that.
That's very long.
It really is.
I saw it in the theaters with my brother-in-law, and both of us, when we got out, we were just kind of like, okay. But what's funny is the rest of the people we were with were like, that was so awesome. So I mean, they definitely have an audience, and they know who their audience is, and they cater to that audience. But I was like, it was just not, action fatigue is a real thing. And then also, like you said, the cartoonishness of it, after a while, you're kind of like, okay, it doesn't matter what happens to him right now, he's just going to get back up again. They could chop his head off, he's going to get up again.
They'll staple it back on and keep going
somehow.
He doesn't have superpowers like Buffy or anything.
No, he's like the world's best hitman or best assassin, and it's pretty like Justin said, it's like Wile E. Coyote with guns. That's pretty much it. How about you, Katryn? Anything? I'm sorry, Justin. You were talking about that.
Real quick. I started watching Wheel of Time season 2. I didn't watch season 1 so much because I tried and I couldn't get into it. But I realized sometimes shows just take a little while to get their feet, to get their feet under them. And so I started on season 2, and I actually like it a lot. So I'm kind of getting wrapped into Wheel of Time season 2. And I remembered to watch it as somebody who doesn't care if it's related to books or not. I find that whenever I watch a show and I try to be, my hardcore fanboyness takes over, that's no good. So if I try to watch it, just say this is its own thing, it's what it is, and that's what I'm doing with it, and I'm enjoying it. So
that's really cool. My husband read all of Wheel of Times, even when they changed authors to Brandon Sanderson. So I was watching it totally fresh. I'm like, this is great, and he's like, okay, I have to move past this. And this.
That's the key with those kind of things. So how about you? You reading anything, watching? Recommendations?
I'm not in a super reading place because I'm actually drafting an adult crime novel now, and I find that my voice gets kind of bogged down in it if I read too many things. But I did just finish the latest season of After Party, which is an Apple Plus show. It's a murder mystery. series, starring Tiffany Haddish as this detective, and it's just really funny. And if you piece together, there's clues kind of throughout the series that are really, really fun to try and figure out. I can't solve it, but my friends have been going like, "Did you solve it?" I'm like, "No, I'm bad at solving this."
Is that the one? It's like something about it's like a catering company involved, or maybe I'm thinking of a different thing.
No, I mean the Party On is the catering.
Oh, maybe that's the one I'm thinking
company,
of.
and that's Apple Plus, I think. But no, After Party is like, I think the first one is a reunion and the second one is a wedding reception, and there's always like somebody who dies at this party, and then they have to piece together from everybody's perspective what happened.
On Apple TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So, Katryn, let's talk a little bit about you. So tell us a bit about your background. I mean, you are a writer. Have you been a writer ever since you were a kid? Or is it kind of one of those things like you gave it a try and you're like, hey, I'm actually, I like this and I'm pretty good at it. I'm going to keep doing it. So which one were you?
I have one of those great kind of inspiring stories for people who are still trying, which is that I started writing when I was like 6 years old, writing mysteries, because apparently I'm obsessed. And I wrote my first murder mystery when I was 13, and I tried to get it published that year. I wrote a couple novels over the years, didn't really go anywhere. And then a few years ago, I decided to really like give it a shot. I got 250 rejections, passed through 2 books, and then on the 3rd book, I got my agent.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was a very, very long process before I hit on Drew Leclair Gets a Clue.
So I want to touch real quick on this book, The Murder Mystery, when you were 13. What was the plot?
Okay, so it was a boarding school mystery, and there was a girl who everybody hated who was murdered, like a teenage girl. And then there was a twist at the end where you realize that she had a twin and that she had actually murdered her twin. It was
how was the reception to that? I mean, you said you pitched it or you queried it?
Oh, I mean, it was actually pretty good. I'm pretty sure they were just focused on, oh, wow, like this kid wrote this when she was 12. Maybe we could market this.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like talk to publishers on the phone and stuff. So I don't know. I got further with that book than I did with most of my other ones.
Understandable. So, okay, so let's talk about Drew Leclair, your pair of books about a very interesting character. So, what was it that inspired the character? And also, had you ever really thought about writing? Would you consider that a YA book or a middle grade book?
That one is definitely a kind of squarely in the middle grade. It keeps it at kind of the cozy level. There's no murder. It's just, kind of a little more of a typical mystery. It is a character, however, that I've been writing over the course of the last few years. I wrote a whole other book with her that was a YA over 10 years ago. And I decided to just give middle grade a try. This is actually my first try at a middle grade. So
what was the process for putting this story together? Because I guess since you'd been writing, your whole life, and you said it's not really like I hope this isn't. You don't take this wrong. It sounds like it's almost like Scooby-Doo-esque in its mysteryness.
Oh no, yeah, and I love a Scooby-Doo. I do. I love a good Scooby Gang. I think I wanted to write a character who was like me at that age, because I kept seeing, as a librarian, kids come into the library and go like, where are your like true crime murdery kind of books? And I was just like, how do you really want that? And they're like, yes, the creepier the better. So I was definitely interested in that stuff when I was really inappropriately young. My dad and I used to watch like Jack the Ripper specials together. And we had, if you saw in the book that her dad and her have these murder and mayhem nights where they get baguettes and olive oil and vinegar, and they just kind of eat baguettes and watch true crime. And my dad and I definitely did that. So that was what inspired me to kind of come around to the idea of this character who's obsessed with criminal profiling and writes like profiles on her fellow students. That's when the story kind of exploded into something else.
And was it hard to, I guess, capture kind of like the world of that age? I mean, because it's in our past, but what it is today is a lot different than like when we were that age. So how was it tapping into that mindset? like into, I don't want to call it as that zeitgeist, but kind of like that world, which it's kind of familiar, but it's probably totally different now. So did you have to actually ask teenagers about that sort of thing? Did you do research, or did you just kind of just dig around and see what you came up with?
Well, it's kind of like I'm cursed on one end and very lucky in the other sense. I'm cursed because I remember everything about how everything felt in middle school, which is really, really awful, but I do remember those feelings. And I was very, very lucky at the time I was writing the book because I was working at a middle school library, middle school library. And I would just listen to them talk. For example, in the second book, Drew Leclair Crushes the Case, it starts with her trying to solve this book fair mystery of these kids who are like leaving grapes around the book fair as this elaborate prank. And that really did happen at my middle school book fair. And I was telling the main librarian, I was like, this is on purpose. And she wasn't believing me. So it was really, really fun getting to bring elements of those real middle school conversations into the story. And then obviously I asked some of them about cyberbullying and what that was like, and how it was different from, say, somebody rousing you in person.
Okay. So I actually, let's talk about Drew a little bit. She's a very different protagonist for a book. I mean, that there's so many elements to her that from my reading experience, I haven't seen before. So what was it about the character? You said you'd worked with this character almost 10 years before. What was it about her that made for such a good protagonist? And I'm very curious how the reception has been to the book, both as a mystery, but also as a YA novel. So can you address those?
So I think so far the reception, I will say, has been very good. I've been blessed with really great reviews, and a couple of people were like, oh, it's an intricately crafted mystery. And I'm like, that's news to me, because I just kind of think in mysteries, despite being very, very bad at solving them. But Drew herself, I don't know what it was about her. She just kind of came to me, and part of me wonders if she's sort of a version of me that has confidence, like that, dealing with a lot of the struggles I had at that age, but she's somehow doing it without internalizing all of this bullying and abuse. And she's able to think of herself as awesome and smart, and really goes after what she wants, which is in many ways like the opposite of how I felt I was in middle school.
As do we all. Okay, so I've asked a good number of questions. I want to toss it over to Justin because he also has experience writing with YA
and middle grade.
And middle grade.
More middle grade. Yeah. So I mean, I think writing from middle grade is awesome, and coming at it from having worked in libraries, that's really cool on your part. So congrats. What would you say if you're like talking to somebody and they're thinking, oh, is this middle grade or is this YA? What am I writing right now? Do you have any thoughts now on how you would advise them?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to middle grade versus YA, how I like to think of it, and it's not how a lot of people frame it, is middle grade is truly, first of all, it's generally characters who are somewhere like 10 to 12 in age range. Sometimes it's as young as 9, sometimes it's as old as 13, but in that age range, if you're writing about those characters, that's middle grade. Because YA, I don't know what it is, but there's like no 14 and 15 characters out there. If you're writing YA, it's going to be 16, 17, 18, it seems like. It's very different from the days of like the Princess Diaries, when she just got to be a 15-year-old protagonist. You just don't see that anymore. The voice, I'd say too, is just, you know yourself better when you're a teenager. And that's why I like to frame it as middle grade is the true coming of age. You're figuring out who you are. And then YA is where you're finding your place in the world after having figured out kind of who you are and what your personality is. So I really love middle grade. First of all, there's some practicalities, like you can't swear and certain things like that. But there's really like you're not quite aware of why you're having your emotions or what they mean. Whereas you're a little more self-reflective and knowing of your emotions and what they mean when you're in YA.
Yeah. I actually wrote, somebody had to take a piss, and I got my beta readers were like, you can't say that. That's swearing. And I was like, piss? Why?
Wait, what did they say was swear?
Piss. Somebody said, I have to go take a piss. Like kids say that all the time. So I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm not gonna be mad at my kids if they say they have to take a piss. But
I know.
I guess it's not appropriate. But also because I think in England or somewhere, you use like taking a piss or you're something. I think it means even worse meaning than it does here, or has more of a swear connotation. I don't know. But
It does.
there's those little
It
things
does.
you have to
Just
be a little
like
more aware of.
you can't say stupid. I've realized
What?
in books, because there's like ableist connotations of it. You really can't say it because Spanish, native
Oh,
Spanish
man.
speakers who have learned English, stupid is a much worse word in
Interesting.
Spanish. Like, it is like the R word. It's really bad.
Oh,
So
wow.
they like I've said it in
Yeah.
like in a picture book reading and had kids like gasp and go like, you can't say that. So
Yeah, I feel like it's also like time changes too, you know, like if certain, like I was raised at a certain time where, you know, in America it was a totally different world and people just said stupid stuff all the time. And nowadays
Yep.
people are much more aware of what you can and cannot say. And so, yeah, if you're jumping into middle grade, you got to be very careful. It's good to have some good beta readers and all that. But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about your publishing journey too. So, like, what has been your experience so far? You've been speaking at schools and whatnot. That's something that I've always shied away from. So I'd love to hear your experience and then, you know, advice to people like me who are like, I don't know.
I mean, I think it helped that I was in education for so long. Like I got my teaching credential and I was a school librarian for a while. So it's a space I kind of feel comfortable in. Like I got used to the performative aspect of presenting to kids. I will say it's my favorite part of outreach and tours and stuff because kids, first of all, there's just like, I love connecting with kids and seeing the look on their face when I'm like, my character has asthma and she's bi, and like having them go like, oh my God, there's a character like me. That moment is really cool. And on a practical level, when you do a school visit, a lot of times the classes will buy a class set or kids will do orders through a bookstore. And so you end up selling way more through author visits than you would at a bookstore.
Okay.
I would say.
That's good to know. Yeah.
At least in middle grade. I don't know about YA.
Actually, just a quick question. What do you talk about at the school visits? I mean, do you come and you talk about the character, or you do read from the book, or is it a Q&A?
I have a whole presentation. Part of it is like how I became an author. And then I kind of do a little study of like how you start writing your own story and giving them kind of inspiration to do that. So that's like one of my presentations. I also have one that teaches them how to write mysteries specifically. And then I have one that's really geared towards the younger readers, like grades 2, 3, because sometimes you have 8-year-olds, you know, in second grade, but grades 2 and 3 are not like going to sit for a whole craft presentation. So I have a special how to write presentation for them where we make our own characters using these like Dungeons and Dragons style character sheets. And it's really cool because I do one for Drew and
Yeah, my buddy who does this stuff, he has like a whole magic performance that he does when he goes to the schools, and like
that's
some
pretty
people
cool.
get
I can't
into
do
this
anything
stuff.
like that.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I gotta like, this is like a whole career just thinking of going to schools and stuff. I mean, it leads to book sales, as you said, but yeah. So
it's hard.
do you have like one part of it that is more performance oriented, or is it mostly like about the teaching and the talking about how you became an author?
I like to say the part that's really performative is me being like really honest about how bad things were when I was a kid. Because like the kids who are being bullied or having that kind of stuff happen do like to hear that. They like to hear like the worst of it. You know, I like
see the
tell
teacher
them
in the
exactly
corner
what my
cringing, like, oh, don't say that.
Yeah. I know.
That's awesome.
Probably some of the teachers won't like me, but I don't know. I mean, like I think that's been like my best experience so far, in part because once you set it up, it's just done. Like nobody's gonna back out. You don't have to worry that no one will show up. I think I have a lot of anxiety about like, what if I make an event at a bookstore and then nobody comes, you know?
Yeah.
Which has happened. Yeah.
Of course. It happens to George R. R. Martin, it'll happen to us. So.
Exactly. It happens to the best of us.
Well, no, then you tweet about it and you get all these famous authors saying, oh, you know, the same thing happened to me. Because I think that was maybe like a month or two ago on Twitter, some author said like I had a signing at a bookstore and nobody showed up. And like Neil Gaiman and
Stephen
other
King.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they were all saying like, "Oh, don't worry about it. The same thing happened to me. You'll be fine." And
That
I
was
think
my friend Jamar.
oh, really?
Yeah, no, he's wonderful. His books are just gorgeous. So I was really happy to see him get that boost.
Wow,
Nice.
that is awesome.
The last question I have on the school presentations is about, I see a lot of people, they have like, what do you, honorarium or whatever, like some kind of fee that they charge for doing the school visits. Do you do that as well? Is that recommended?
It's certainly recommended, and it's kind of a balance because you don't want to undervalue other authors by not charging enough. But at the same ticket, when you're a new author and you're trying to promote your book, you kind of have to do it for free if you can. Because like a lot of public schools especially don't have the money for it. Like where I live in, I think we all live in California, but public schools in California don't have the money to pay like, $1,000 honorariums, right? So I'm doing it for free until I become a celebrity or something.
Yeah, cool. We have these special reading days where the teachers ask us to be like surprise readers, and we go in there and do it. So I've done like those kind of things, but not like the official ones where you ask for money and that kind of stuff. I'm like, so out of my comfort bubble, introverted writer. So let's talk about mystery though. I want to talk about mystery. I've written on a mystery video game once, so I had a lot of fun like looking up all the rules about writing mystery, because there seem to be a lot. How much do you stick to those rules, and like what's your system? Do you have like a system that you kind of always follow when you're like outlining and thinking about what the mystery will be, or how do you approach it?
I mean, I think in my mind, I kind of think of a story and I try not to overdo the clues too much on the first pass. I usually go back and add breadcrumbs and clues on the revise. So that is a process, but a lot of people have been asking me that recently. Like I met this YA author at a brunch at ALA, and she was like, "Oh, you write fair play mysteries?" And I was like, "That's news to me. What's that?" And apparently it's the ones where if the reader follows the clues, they can conceivably figure out who did it.
Interesting.
Which I did, but I didn't know that was a name. Ultimately, I just consume lots and lots of mysteries. Like I've read every single Nancy Drew. I still read them as they come out. And I watch mysteries like after party, I just watch mysteries. I read mysteries. So it kind of feels a little organic to me, I guess, to write them.
I didn't know they were still coming out. That's cool.
Oh, they
What
are.
age did you start reading those, by the way? The Nancy Drew ones? Do you
probably
remember?
about like 8 or 9.
Okay. I got them for my daughter about 2 years ago, and she's 10 now. So she hasn't started reading them yet, because at first she looked at them, she's like, eh. So
Which
I'm like, what age should I start
though?
forcing her to read them? I don't know. It was a box set. I just grabbed like a box set off of Amazon that had good reviews. And so the specific ones we got to know about. Which ones are those?
Well, at this point, the original like Yellow Book series is so outdated. So I think today's readers might have to start with the modern series and then go back once they're interested. So the current series is Nancy Drew Diaries, and it is really good. And it has a little more of today's language and stuff. Yeah,
because now we're reading Diary of a Sixth Grade Ninja and Dork Diaries and all these kind of things. And they're a lot of fun, and they're all these mystery. A lot of them are anyway. Diary of Sixth Grade Ninja is usually some kind of mystery. Who's trying to mess him over? Who's trying to destroy all the science projects at school?
I love
that kind of stuff. So I was gonna ask if you have any recommendations for like I feel like it's harder to get some of the boys to be as interested in this genre, but the Sixth Grade Ninja one's doing a great job, I think. But do you have any other good recommendations for
Stuart
ones
Gibbs
that cross? Stuart Gibbs?
Yeah, Stuart Gibbs is great for middle grade mystery. He does Spy School. That's his most famous, but that's not my favorite. Fun Jungle is a really fun mystery series, and then Space Case, which just looks like a science fiction series, is actually a mystery series.
Okay, cool. And is he traditionally published or self-published? Do you know?
Traditionally, yeah, he's really popular. Oh, also James Ponti writes City Spies, which is kind of perfect for 10-year-olds.
Awesome. All right, I'm writing these down. So that's really cool.
And then did you say you were really good at Reader's Advisory?
Yeah. And did you say yours was traditionally published or yourself? I think you said at the
Yes,
beginning.
mine is HarperCollins. Although
cool.
it was kind of a weird story because Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, back when they had a fiction division, bought my book. They put out like the crossover by Kwame Alexander. I'm trying to think of books you might know, but a couple different well-known authors were HMH Books and Media, which is kind of like a Scholastic size. But now more and more big publishers are subsuming the mid to small sizes publishers. So they were purchased by HarperCollins like in the middle of the book deal.
Gotcha. Yeah, and now there's some drama maybe going on around Simon and Schuster that I guess will be a whole podcast to figure out someday.
Penguin
you heard of
Random
that?
House was blocked from buying them because of antitrust issues.
Oh, interesting.
And so now they were just purchased by the company that was featured in Barbarians at the Gates. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And I think people are talking about that'll have a similar issue to what happened to Toys R Us, where because they got bought, they're saddled with a bunch of debt that they'll never be able to pay off. And like, so it's like, oh, scary. I don't know the details of that, so don't take my word on it, anybody. But well, I wanted to last question for you would be so traditional versus self. You've probably interacted with some self-published authors throughout the years. Definitely. I've done a lot of self-publishing myself, so don't hate on them, please. But what is your advice in terms of people who are thinking about going one way or the other?
I mean, what I tell all the kids, because I've had a couple like lunch with author kind of things, and some of them are very interested in publishing. And like, if you are extroverted, if you're willing to have conversations and sell your work, then absolutely self-publish, because you will retain that money. I myself went traditional publishing mostly because I'm incredibly shy. And it's difficult for me to just approach people over and over and over again. It's helpful to me to have like a PR firm like Wonderkid or HarperCollins' publicity department reach out for me, or my agent, right?
Yeah.
Introverts.
That makes sense.
It's harder to self-pub if you're an introvert.
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny because you say that, because then you're the one who goes and does the public speaking, and I'm the one who doesn't, but then you're traditionally and I'm self. So but I feel you, because I don't reach out to a lot of people and be like, hey, can I come talk in your stuff? So I gotta get better at that.
The reaching out part is hard, but for whatever reason, talking to kids is easy, I think, because I just have the teaching background.
Oh yeah. Kids scare me, that's for sure. I have my own kids. I love them. They don't scare me, but just being around a bunch of kids, I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to act around you. I feel like I'm still one of them, so it's weird, but I'm bigger, so it doesn't make sense. Paul, back to you.
Actually, I was very intrigued with I think it was a part of your blog on your website, was that the Drew Leclair books, or at least the first one, it's been on a couple of banned books lists. Now, I find that fascinating, because for the way you've described it, it's not G-rated, but it's almost like PG. And there's nothing offensive, but I guess some people might find the material controversial. So, and I thought it was really fascinating that some people said to you, oh, you should wear it as a badge of honor, like, oh, my books have been banned. But, there's also, the real world implications of this and the ramifications. Like, some people might think about this. Oh, I've heard about this book. Oh, it's on a banned book list. Oh, there must be something wrong with it. So, I mean, what has your reaction been to that? And I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, but I mean, are there any things that you are, I don't want to say doing to counter it, but what has your approach been to dealing with this?
I've really gotten up on my soapbox about banned books and about anti-LGBTQ hate, I think, as a result. And I normally am not a person to put myself out there a ton, because like I said, I'm an introvert. But a couple things happened. One was my book hit the ban list, and the other was that my library was really put on the attack after some drag queen story hours. And it has just made me so like ruffled and upset, and wanting to protect, kids who just want to be themselves, right? I was really shocked when I heard that Drew hit the list, and I guess it was because it was featured on the American Library Association Rainbow list. But I can't imagine they read it. Like, it's as innocuous as there's some, gay characters, and then at one point my character says, oh, well, I guess I have crushes on boy and girl characters. Like, I mean, it's kind of bananas to me that anybody would think of that as content, that's like explicit or anything like that.
Has anyone talked to you about it? Like, I guess that I guess when you do your school visits,
Yeah.
do people bring that sort of thing up, or do they have like a little prep time with you, like, okay, here's what you can talk about with the book, here's what we don't want you to talk about?
I've been very fortunate, and maybe this is because I'm in California, that I haven't had anybody prep me like that.
Hmm.
However, I did do an author visit at a middle school over just like East Bay, like San Ramon. And apparently a few concerned parents called about the content of my book. And the librarians fortunately just backed me up. They're like, no, there's nothing wrong with the content of this book. We read it, you know? But for people who haven't read it, you know, it's easy to kind of assume there must be something there that isn't, and not trust that. I mean, not only am I a professional author and a library professional, but like this book has to pass through so many gatekeepers in order to be published. So it's kind of wild to me that they think that there's going to be content that isn't going to be age appropriate, right? To each level. Like the one that really bugged me was when it was put on a list in Virginia of pornographic books. I'm like, so you just get to lie? Like, I don't know. It just really, it really ruffled me.
Maybe that's just a very umbrella term for something, you know, stuff we don't like.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there's something in here we might not like, so we're just gonna, you know, just throw it all into this one category.
I know. And the same goes for like picture books, like Pride Colors is one of the books that's on there. And it's literally just this book, like going through the colors of the rainbow, saying like, red is I love you. And that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for fighting back and standing up for the things that the book represents. I think that's really important. Okay, so I went in this on a more positive and uplifting note. So, okay, so you have it's hard to say this without stumbling over the words. You have 2 Drew Leclair books, and you're working on an adult book now. Is there a plan for a 3rd Drew Leclair book?
I really hope so. I hope people buy the book and they let me write a 3rd one. Right now it's pretty up in the air. From what I hear, middle grade books especially take a long time to like either they pick up or they don't. So in the meantime, I do have another middle grade book, although it's really upper middle grade. It's a 13-year-old 8th grade protagonist. So it's instead of being for 8 to 12, it's more like 10 to 13. And that is like it's a contemporary book. It has some mysterious kind of puzzly elements, but it's not a Scooby-Doo mystery.
Excellent. Fantastic. And where could people find you online?
So I have a website, katrynbury.com. You can add my books, Drew Leclair Gets a Clue, Drew Leclair Crushes the Case, and We Are Not Alone on Goodreads, and connect with me there. I'm also on Instagram under @KatrynWrites and TikTok under the same name. I'm also on Facebook, but I don't think anybody really goes there anymore. Instagram and TikTok are my main 2. I just make kind of fun reels.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you about the school visits,
Sure.
Is that through your website, or is there another way?
That would be through my website. I have a pretty typical email that's just for all those things, which is just katrynbury@gmail.com. It's easy because no one's name is Katryn, so I'm able to get all that stuff.
There you go. That's a good way to do it. All right, Katryn, this has been fascinating and really informative stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Anytime.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And listeners, if you could check out the Drew Leclair books, of course, leave reviews. Authors love that, and spread word of mouth. Maybe invite her to your school. And also the show. We love reviews. We love word of mouth. That's great. Once again, I'm Justin Sloan. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast.
And I'm Paul Zeidman. You can check out my screenwriting blog, MaximumZ, at MaximumZ.blog. I'm still on social media, on Twitter at Maximum_Z, and on Instagram at Pez Screenwriting. That's PEZ Screenwriting. Like he said, he's Justin. That's Katryn. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.